Hey guys, I'm Samantha Miller, a realtor here in the Nashville area. My husband and I moved here almost 2 years ago, and my channel mostly consists of real estate topics like home tours and what life is like here in Nashville. But today I wanted to do something a little bit different. Just like all of us, I'm more than just my job. So there's more to me than just being a real estate agent. I'm a wife, I'm also a nurse and enjoy working out, and I'm a big foodie. I also am a dog mom. And honestly, getting a real estate agent's opinion on living here is great, but I wanted to put that aside and just talk to you about why we chose Nashville to call home. Ultimately, we wanted to find a place to plant our roots, grow a family, and raise kids in an environment where we believe they would flourish, and we happened to land in Tennessee. So since we've been here for almost 2 years, I thought I would give you guys an update on what our life has been like, things we've learned, and some of the pros and cons, so that you have a better idea of what to expect whenever you decide to make the move. When my husband and I decided to move, I spent a lot of time on YouTube, trying to gather as much information as I could, and I couldn't find anything specific to my situation that covered all the topics that were important. And by that I mean moving from a beach town with beautiful weather all year round to a landlocked state with a lower cost of living. Instagram and casual conversations are great, but I wanted the raw and real opinion on what it's like. And I just couldn't find it. So I thought it would be a great idea to talk to you more about that today. So I asked a few viewers and friends who relocated what was most important to them. And the hot topics were how we moved, like hiring movers versus renting a U-Haul, the weather, the culture, schools, cost of living, and lastly, any regrets we have after being here for some time. So let's get into the video. So in order to talk about this, I had to bring on the second half of this decision, which is my husband, Chase. So we've been married for almost 4 years. We've been together for 10 years. We were actually friends in high school before we decided to start dating. So why don't you tell them a little bit about our story and kind of how we ended up here in Nashville?
Yeah, so we were both born and raised in Southern California near the beach. Sam went to school up in San Francisco during that same time. You could probably find me surfing anywhere between like San Diego County and Santa Barbara. So I'd like to think we're pretty well-versed Californians. But I don't think I ever thought I would move away from the beach, to be honest with you. Like we're beach people. But I'm involved in the music business as a country music artist and singer-songwriter. So many actually think it was like my idea to move here. Although I was in full support of it, it was actually more of Sam kind of pushing for it. And yeah, I'm really glad we did. I'm finding more and more things now that we've moved here that I'm enjoying about it. And just the slower pace, the cost of living, the outdoors. I grew up, I was in scouts and things like that. So it's been really good to kind of explore, get back outdoors and just enjoy that. And again, I feel like the longer we're here, like we're finding more and more that we like about it. So.
Yeah, definitely. I agree. So the first topic I wanted to talk about is the logistics of moving. It's one question we get asked a lot is how we moved here. So if we hired movers, if we rented a U-Haul. We moved during COVID and during the height of kind of the influx of people moving out of state from California when the interest rates are really low. It was in January of 2021. So we considered a U-Haul. We wanted both of our cars here. We looked into it and it was actually extremely expensive, probably about the same price as hiring a professional moving company. But we had our cars in addition. So we decided to get creative because that's just how we are. We like to look for a good deal. So Chase went on the internet.
Yeah, I went on Craigslist. You know, people still use that. I don't even know. Facebook Marketplace seems to be the new thing. But yeah, went on there, found a cargo trailer that was about 16 feet long, and I was like, well, this needs a little bit of work, but I think we can fit our whole 2-bedroom condo in this thing and move it across the country. So yeah, that's kind of what we did. And you know, arguably, the logistics of moving has to be like one of the most stressful things that you think about, because typically there's a really high price tag involved with it. You're already moving your life, all those emotions that go with that, and then you're just going to this new place. So, but yeah, it worked out very well, as Sam mentioned.
Barely fit.
Yeah, literally, we have pictures we could show you. It's literally to the brim. We had to leave behind, I think, a vacuum or something.
Yeah,
like,
we did.
Like 1 or 2 things didn't fit, but it was totally fine. It worked out for us, and I think it was the best option. So.
Yeah, I agree. I have heard that people, if you're not looking to move both your cars, there's probably an easier option. We were just somewhat limited.
Totally.
And we were lucky enough where his car could haul a 16-foot trailer. So you got to figure out what's best for you, and, you know, look into different options. And some people have that, some people have the opportunity that their job can move them as well and kind of give them a little bit of credit towards that. So, you know, you got to find what works for you, and that was our best option. So, and we actually were going to sell it when we moved here. We were going to use it, and they were like, oh, we'll get the money back when we sell it here. And we still have it because it's come in handy so many times. So it actually worked out. Also, the other thing about the trailer, which is kind of cool for us, is we didn't move into a house right away. We actually stayed in a corporate rental. So we were renting like a month to month when we first moved here until we found a home, because like I said, we were here during the height of the housing market. So it actually worked out for us more so because it was kind of now a storage unit. So we parked it, we kind of took what we could or needed out of it more or less, but then all of our stuff was in one place. We didn't have to get a storage unit. We didn't need to move all of our stuff into like a garage or the house right away. So there is that to consider too if you are not moving straight into your home.
So pay attention when you're packing, because if you need to access things when you get here, you need to make sure those things are toward where you can access them, if it's in a trailer or in a pod or something like that. So
yes, definitely. So that's a little bit about our journey to moving here. The next thing we want to talk about is the weather. So I have another video talking about the specifics of, you know, more the facts about the weather here if you want to look at that, but I'll link it below. But I more want to talk about our opinions on the weather here. So
they're different.
Yeah, for sure. Because I'm more of a complainer than he is. But the one thing that we moved here in January, and 2 weeks later was that huge snowstorm that hit Texas where they lost power and didn't have water. So it kind of affected more of Tennessee as well. Not quite as severely, but that was our introduction to Tennessee. And it was beautiful. I thought the weather was really cool, but I don't know if you have any opinions on it.
No, I mean, I think overall, I mean, when we first moved here, like literally within a week of moving here, we had that snowstorm.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it was like, wow, this is crazy. Does this happen all the time? And then we found out, like, okay, this isn't the norm, you know, like, so that's kind of my takeaway on the weather is, you know, obviously we've both done, you know, quite a bit of traveling, and I think given a perspective of California being, you know, very weather friendly and being very consistent across, you know, just across the whole year. You know, it doesn't get very cold, doesn't get crazy humid in most places. It does get hot, I guess, but it's kind of anywhere. But for us, for me, I'll speak for myself. I didn't find it to be too extreme. I mean, the humidity definitely in the summer is something to consider if you don't like that. But the winters for sure were not as harsh as some other areas, like on the East Coast or in various other states. And I like to think I've been to other states that were even more humid than here. So that's just my perspective. But
yeah, no, I agree. I didn't think the snow was that bad. The only thing that I've learned about it, being from California, is you kind of have to prepare a little bit more. Yeah. I'm not gonna lie, having a garage has come in handy. Sometimes since I'm also a nurse, I work some shifts during the week, and leaving at 5-6 o'clock in the morning, I'd spend about 10 to 15 minutes icing or defrosting my windshield. And now I parked in the garage, and it just saves so much time and energy, and my fingers aren't numb. So there's that.
That and sorry to cut you
No,
off,
no,
but
you're fine.
the snow here too, like even though it doesn't happen very often or very much of it, the city is not really like prepared for snow, I guess, so to speak. So like, you might be used to like a mountain town or somewhere in California or somewhere in like Montana, like somewhere where like they actually have like snow plows that go out and
The resources
and the
and the budget.
resources in the budget to kind of go out and do that. But here it's like it doesn't happen very often. So when it happens, like everybody's like, oh, okay, like we don't know what to do now. Like I guess we just don't leave the house for a day, because the roads are a little more icy and just they don't prep as well. So.
They closed the schools. They
closed the emergency
businesses.
vets weren't even open.
Yeah,
sometimes.
we had a pet
So,
emergency. Luckily, it was okay, but we
Yeah.
had a hard time finding a vet that was open when it
Yeah.
snowed. So, yeah, it's very interesting. And then my favorite season now is the fall. It was never the fall in California. It's just beautiful, like to see the leaves turn. I mean, the foliage here is absolutely beautiful.
Yeah.
And it actually gets chilly, and sweater weather is a real thing.
Bonfire weather.
Yeah, bonfire weather. So, yeah, and then I'll briefly touch on the summertime only because you did. I'll also mention it, but it's hot, it's humid, it's an adjustment. There's no cool breeze. You're just sweating outside. But honestly, weirdly enough, you just kind of get used to it. It's just hot all the time, so at least it's consistent.
Yeah.
And there are plenty of ways to like cool off here, and every day's a pool day unless it's raining.
Yeah.
So every day's a lake day. That's kind of cool. I remember in California and Orange County where we're from, June gloom, and not every day's a beach day. So here in the summertime you can really enjoy yourself, and
Yeah.
I mean you make it work. You just have to go with
Totally.
it. 'Cause
Yeah.
there's pros here. So.
Yeah, I mean, I think the lake life's a really big thing. I mean, that and, also we're driving distance to Florida. So, I mean, like, again, we're beach people. I mean, so you can take a quick weekend trip, long weekend trip, 3-day trip or whatever, and just go down there. And it's still humid down there, but you have like this beautiful clear water. So, I mean, it doesn't seem like, that far of a stretch. So if you need a break and you want to kind of get your ocean time in and maybe not go in the lake, but go into like a beautiful ocean, you can always do that too.
The next thing I want to talk about is the culture here. So one big reason we did move here is how different it is from California. Growing up where, the cost of living is high, which I think puts a lot of pressure on people to sustain a certain lifestyle, and also just the affordability in general. We lived in a small condo. We were very fortunate to have that condo. We did own it. And we did have a roommate and
Yeah.
who we loved. But it's just a little different, and we couldn't really afford anything else unless we wanted to move farther away from the water. And we just didn't really see that as something that was compatible with our lifestyle and our family and our future. So I don't know if you have anything to mention about the culture here or your opinions on it.
No, totally. I mean, I think that has a lot, there's a lot to say about it, but I mean, I'm not a big city person, and mostly because it's not because I don't like the city, it's more of the things that come with the city. And, driving to and from work when I was in California, it was billboards everywhere, crazy traffic and people who are rude and honking and, people not even just holding the door for people, basic things. And I feel like when I was raised, it was like, hey, hold the door for her or whatever it may be. So that is not like that here. I mean, everything we've experienced thus far has been just absolutely amazing. We have the best neighbors. Like, I don't even remember like knowing some of our neighbors when we lived in California. I mean, I lived in different places in California a couple times growing up. And I feel like I got to know like one or two neighbors, but right now, like we live where we live, and I think we know
everyone.
I think we know everybody on our whole street. And it's just because people are nice and they genuinely care. They genuinely care. And I think that's huge, and I think that's, perfect for people who are trying to raise a family here too, because that rubs off on the next generation and kind of how they're raised and how they think.
Yeah, definitely. Like I think people here really appreciate the slower pace, and their job is just a job. They if they have a job.
Yeah.
I mean, we live around a lot of retired people,
We do.
so they have a lot of time on their hands. But I think being around people like that, when we first got our house, we did some remodeling and we didn't have a kitchen. We had a neighbor who brought us home cooked meals and beer and water, and we
All the good stuff.
yeah. And we didn't have a mower yet, and our lawn was getting a little out of hand. So a neighbor offered to mow our lawn, which we did take him up on that offer. And they were just doing it to be nice. We kind of were a little guarded at first about it.
For sure.
But over time now, we just really appreciate, I mean, Southern hospitality is a real thing. And it's somewhat contagious, I think, when people hold the door for you or say thank you. It makes you want to kind of be just as polite, because that rubs off. I think in California that, people being stressed and things like that kind of rubbed off on me. I don't know, but being here, I'm just feel like I'm more relaxed. And
For sure. And just to touch on work-life balance again, I mean, just one more thing is it's the people out here just place a different value on work-life balance. I mean, I think that there's a lot of really hardworking people just across the U.S. In whatever state they may be in, but getting off at 5 o'clock and going home to have your family time is definitely a priority here. And I think that is absolutely amazing. Coming from a Los Angeles type culture, big corporate gigs out there, expectations to kind of get that next promotion or next level of your career is to put in more hours, and there's results and then there's hours, and everybody thinks that they kind of go together when really it's not always the case. And I think if anything, these last couple of years have shown us a lot about work culture and what people are valuing. So
yeah, definitely. I agree. So we'll talk briefly about education and schools. We won't get into school ratings or anything like that. Those are all listed on, internet sites and whatnot. But I mostly just wanted to kind of brush on what we've heard about the schools here. And one thing is there is an abundance of them. They're continuing to build more schools. There's a new high school down the road here in Mount Juliet that's only a year or two old. And whatever your child or children need is definitely offered here in terms of whether it's academics or athletics, certain religious structures, charter schools. There's also homeschooling co-ops here. There's just really anything that you could want for your child is definitely offered here, in my opinion. So.
Totally.
Yeah.
No, I agree. I don't really have too much to add about schools, but I think the one thing that I've kind of captured and been able to pick up on a little bit is talking to people that I feel like in California, there was maybe a little bit of a stigma attached to, private schools or something like that. Going to a public school, I remember thinking so-and-so goes to a private school, there was some type of stigma attached to it.
Right.
And, that might have just been my perspective, but I think that here it doesn't really lean that way as much. I feel like it's just another school and it's another preference of how people, get educated. So there's lots of public schools, lots of private schools, and I think just an abundance of options.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah. We know people with families who do attend the public school system, but then they also have kids who go to charter schools and everywhere in between. So I don't think it really is quite the same as in California, which is cool. There's lots of options.
Yeah, 100%.
And sports are big here. Even high school is big. They tailgate at high school football games, which I didn't know I don't remember that in California.
Depending on the school.
Oh, okay. But I think it's cool. And so we'll also talk about the cost of living just briefly. I know it kind of overlapped with the culture here quite a bit. But one big thing to touch on is one of the reasons I wanted to move here was I didn't want to live in a condo my whole life, like I kind of touched on earlier. And you can see behind me this beautiful kitchen that we remodeled last year, and I just know that it sounds silly, but knowing that I can move here and have this beautiful house with all these customizable features. I mean, that's unheard of in California. So, but it was definitely a selling point for moving here. There's just more options and in that sense. And anything you want to touch on?
Yeah, I mean, I think just overall, I mean, just the housing prices, obviously, in California are just a little bit out of reach sometimes, I feel like. And especially for like just people who are younger in their career and growing a family and whatever it may be, just like life's hurdles and etc. But being able to come here and afford like an actual home with some land, if that's what you want, or maybe like if you're into like condos, that type of living, like you can actually afford to get like a really nice condo downtown rather than, I don't know, being inland in California, whatever it may be. So I think it just provides a lot more options, a lot more space. I mean, I like to tinker with things. So I mean, it was,
Definitely.
we didn't, in our condo, we didn't have like a garage. We didn't have a basement. We didn't have these extracurricular spaces, I guess, like to kind of do these extracurricular activities. And it's just pretty neat, just across the board. And then I also believe like, I haven't gone out there and like, took notes on it like you have, I guess, but you're the pro. But, things like gas, eating out, like, just groceries, insurance, things like that seem to be just a little bit cheaper. I feel like I would go out to a meal in California and it would be, $18 to $22 for lunch sometimes, depending on where I went, and I feel like I can go to lunch here and it's like, $10 to $12 or maybe even less depending on where you go, especially as you get outside of the direct city center.
Right.
So pretty neat.
Yeah. No, I agree.
Yeah.
The only, I don't want to say con, but the only thing to consider about the cost of living here is because it is significantly lower than California, trade type of jobs and even my salary as a nurse is significantly lower than what it was in California, which I'm sure is no surprise if you've been doing research at all. But that is something to consider when you are looking to move here, because it is a real thing. I mean, it definitely is something to keep in mind. But it really, with no state income tax and everything being a little bit cheaper, it's definitely doable, and it's not really an unfair advantage or anything like that, or disadvantage, I should say, excuse me. But the last thing I did want to talk about is any regrets that we may have, or just like things to mention, any cons really of moving here. We've, boasted about Tennessee and Nashville so much, which is honest, but any regrets or anything you want to say? Final words.
Yeah, well, I feel like the whole video has been pros, so I guess it's good that we get into the cons, but there aren't very many. I think the one big thing that I kind of wish we would have done is one of your first trips to Nashville, you came home and you're like, babe, we should buy a place in Nashville. And this was like, I don't know,
I didn't know what he was going to say.
a few years before we did end up making the move. And kicking myself, we just didn't do it sooner, to be honest with you. That's one of the big cons.
Yeah.
But outside of that, I mean, I think that there's a lot of emotions that go with moving your life across the country. In all reality, I do miss the beach a little bit, but you have to remember, like, we're big beach goers. Like, spent a lot of my time in the water in California. So that might not be an issue for some people, but I also have learned that Florida is a very short drive away, and we can do a short weekend trip, and I can get my saltwater fix. Mm-hmm. And we're also really close to just other traveling destinations down in the Caribbean, a lot of areas that we haven't got to explore yet, but we like traveling, so I think that's kind of cool. Mm-hmm.
This is turning into a pro, you know that, right?
Yeah, it kind of is. I'm just getting off track here a little bit. But another thing is, last thing is just missing some like friends and family. Obviously, like when you move, not everybody else that you love and care about moves, even though we're working on that with our parents and siblings. So kind of in process, but it's been a little bit uncomfortable at times, but totally worth it. Wouldn't change it. So.
Yeah, I agree. I'm just going to piggyback off that uncomfortability thing.
Please piggyback it up.
I agree 100% with what he said. I don't really have any regrets. If anything, I wish we would have bought or moved sooner, because it's crazy how housing prices have increased so much. But besides that, we didn't really know we had acquaintances here, but we didn't really have any family
Yeah.
here. We didn't have real friends that we trusted or really knew.
Yeah.
It was mostly acquaintances he knew through music. And so it kind of forced us to be uncomfortable and really get to know people. And once again, this is probably turning into a pro, but it has made us more outgoing, and we've gotten more involved with church and going out to, meeting music people through writers' rounds, and I've enjoyed that.
Just social events.
Yeah, like
for
social
sure.
events and things like that. Joining those Facebook groups, and I've enjoyed it. You kind of, once you start getting uncomfortable more often, it becomes less uncomfortable. So,
And I think you experience more growth too, just overall. I mean, the more
Exactly.
uncomfortable you get. I know it's not fun, but
yeah.
I think for sure we've both grown as people in our relationship, professionally, etc.
Definitely.
Because we did have some less distraction. There I am again with more pros.
I know,
Like
I
less
was gonna touch on
distractions.
that,
But anyway,
too.
what a good way to close.
No, I think we do have less distractions. I think that's really been beneficial for us to really, refocus on our relationship and realize what's important in life. And I think the environment does that as well, has that effect. But I don't really have anything that I really regret. I just, like you, I miss the ocean sometimes, and I miss our family.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're hoping to get them out here.
No regrets.
No regrets.
Not even one letter. Not even one.
If you have any questions, or if you do want us to do a part 2, any suggestions, let us know. Thank you for watching. We'll have another video soon.
Thanks for having me.
You're welcome. Anytime with my special guest, my husband, Chase Miller. Thank you. Bye.
Bye.